Hey, Brandon.
How we doing?
Just good. How are you?
Doing well.
Just overall, how satisfied are you with how things played out in free agency for you guys?
Yeah, Daniel, I thought we executed our plan at a high level. I think we went into it with a clear vision of what we wanted to accomplish, and I think who we were able to add really helped our team, helped elevate the depth of our team, and certainly added a lot of experience and a lot of production. And I think that that's really what you're after in free agency. I think free agency is about value, and I think that we achieved that. Really excited about this group that we have. Their production, their experience, and then coming in and fitting the type of character people that we're looking for, the type of competitors we're looking for. I thought we executed our plan extremely well.
Wanted to ask a few specific questions. I'm sure at this point you've sort of gotten deep into the tape of all the guys that you have and gotten a good understanding of sort of what you have on both sides of the ball. With Nasir Adderley, what have you seen from him on tape? How does he fit into this defense? And what are you sort of expecting from him as he goes into year three? It's really year two because he missed all that rookie year with the hamstring injury.
Yeah, Daniel, I think you hit on an important point. Just really missed all of that. His first year. So I think last year was really the first time, really he's playing in the NFL. And Derek Ansley, our secondary coach, worked with Nas at the Senior Bowl coming out when Derek was in Oakland. Had a really high opinion of him. I think he's our type of safety. He can see in the deep part of the field. He's smooth. He's got a lot of DB traits for us, Daniel. I mean, he's got some versatility. We kind of felt like he had some slot flex, whether he was playing star money, but really think that he's a smooth athlete. Definitely can see in the deep part of the field, which we really value, and think that he's going to be a good fit for how we want to play. And I just think that secondary environment that we have with a Ronaldo Hill, who's been a 10-year NFL safety, DA, Tommy Donatel, we think it's going to be a great environment for him to grow.
Just overall, in terms of your depth at safety, you guys used a decent amount of three safety packages last year with the Rams. Obviously going to mold your scheme around your players, but how do you feel overall about your depth at safety? Alohi Gilman is the third guy there. Is that somewhere you think that you guys can invest in the draft to get more depth at that position?
Yeah, Daniel, I don't think you can have enough DBs just in the current NFL. What you have to defend and who you have to defend. I think having DBs on your team, a lot of depth at that position is a great idea. And then where it also impacts your team is in the kicking game. The more DBs that you have on your roster that are quality players, the more impact they have in the kicking game. So that's certainly in an area that we are looking to address, and really looking forward to coaching those three that we have. But from a number standpoint, we'll certainly address that here in the coming months.
To stick with the DB trend, as you said, you can't have enough DBs. Obviously, you've been known to mold your scheme around the players you have, but the draft sort of gives you an opportunity to target players with specific athletic profiles, football profiles that you're looking for specifically. For a cornerback, what are you looking for out of that position in your scheme?
Yeah, Daniel, I think it's always important going into the draft, that you have a clear vision for the player. At corner, they come in a lot of different shapes and sizes, okay? If it was a one-size-fit-all, then everybody would be doing that, but that's not the case. For us, it's more about the critical factors for the position, Daniel. They're critical factors for the position, and for us, it's being able to play man-to-man. That's where it starts. You have to be able to cover man-to-man, and we kind of evaluate that in two phases, how they play man-to-man from bump and how they play man-to-man from off, which is cushion race for us. So we evaluate that first and foremost. The second thing is, what is their movement like at level 2? When they are off, what is their movement like? And we really value that, because you can't just press in this league. You have to play off, and being able to cover receivers from that position too. How do they judge the ball in the deep part of the field? What is their production like when the ball's at level 3? How do they play the ball? What are their ball skills like? What's their ball judgment like? How do they play in and out of phase? That's really important. And then what's their open field tackling like? How are they going to be in run support? Because you can't play defense if your corners can't tackle. And so those are really kind of the critical factors for us. And then certainly, size, speed, arm length, all that stuff comes into play. But like I said, there's a lot of different shapes and sizes of corners. What we try to do is really hone in on those critical factors for the position. And then what that generates is a lot larger pool of DBs that you can work with.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Michael.
Hey, Brandon, I wanted to ask you about the Kyler Fackrell signing. He is kind of that maybe more traditional 3-4 outside linebacker, that edge player, more of the Nwosu fit than, say, a Joey Bosa. Just kind of talk about what you like from his game and what you think he brings to the Chargers.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for Kyler's game. I was in the division with him for 2 years. I felt like he always played well against us in Chicago. He had that really big year in 2018, but I think he's just got a lot of versatility. He's a really good pass rusher. I think, you always start there with an edge player. And guys, that's what we're going to call them. We're going to call them edge players if that's okay with you. They're edge players for us. They're edge players. Joey Bosa is an edge player for us. Uchenna Nwosu is an edge player for us. So I hope that's okay with you guys. So that's what we're going to, just to kind of clear up, our lines of communication moving forward. They're edge players for us. And Kyler certainly fits that description. He's got pass rush ability, certainly demonstrated it last year with New York in his season there. But he's outstanding in the run game at the point of attack. Got a lot of versatility that way to play a variety of techniques, which I think fits our style of play. And he's had production coming from winning places. I think he's played on, for 2 really good teams. I've got a lot of respect for the way they played last year in New York with the Giants, and he's just got outstanding makeup too. I think we're getting him at the right time. He feels like he has a lot left, a lot to prove, and he's certainly going to add depth to that position, and I'm excited to coach him.
You guys signed 3 offensive linemen. Obviously, you've shown a commitment to this position to kind of retool that group. What are some traits and characteristics that you maybe saw across those 3 signings that made you want to go after them?
Yeah, production, Michael, production experience, come from championship caliber programs, Corey Linsley specifically, Matt Filer specifically, and they have size. We wanted to, become a bigger team. And then, when you sign the best, what we feel like is the best, who we feel like is the best center in football, and a Corey Linsley, a commander, a guy that is got all the leadership intangibles that position requires. When you have him and Justin Herbert running the show in the middle of your offense, we feel like that's going to be a winning edge for us. And who he's been partnering up with, in his career, one of the special guys in the league. And we feel like now Justin and Corey can team up to be one of those special tandems in the league. And his physicality, and I think that the big thing with Corey, Michael, is that we feel like he's a difference maker. There's a lot of centers that are good players, but who's a difference maker? And we feel like Corey's a difference maker more ways than one. Certainly with his physical skills, but then all the intangible stuff too. Matt Filer is a guy that I really value. Right tackle flexibility, played on the right side, then goes into left guard. That's a huge stance transition for a player, and he did it seamlessly. We kind of feel like he provides us that guard tackle flex. But going to start out at guard for us, but just really physical, comes from a really good offensive line culture, right? Pittsburgh with DeCastro and Pouncey and that group, Villanueva, that's a really good group of guys, okay? And so, we felt like, this guy knows what it takes. And certainly when we're trying to build our program, you're trying to join up with people that knows what it takes. So, and feel like we got him at the right point of his career where he still has a lot to prove, a lot left too. And then Ode Abushi, we felt like this guy played really well last year. Jay Rogers was in the division with him in Chicago last year. As you guys know, Jay, our run game coordinator, edge coach, guys, edge coach. Okay, and so just we felt like Ode is one of these guys that's ascending. He's 29 years old, and everyone's like, well, God, this guy's taking the road less traveled. But sometimes that's the way it happens for pro players. Right, it's a developmental game, and sometimes it comes on for people at different stages. And so we feel like we're getting him at the right time. He's an outstanding pass protector, 6'5", and so we kind of feel like those 3 guys are good fits for us. And or feel like moving forward that's a room that will hopefully be a real strength of ours.
And last one from me, just curious, did you guys send out many contingencies to pro days? Because I don't think Sean McVay and the Rams sent out any guys at all, and I didn't know if you were maybe following his suit, just obviously coming from that tree.
Yeah, no, we haven't sent any coaches out. It's a different type of year. I think we get a lot more accomplished from home base, from Central Command Center. You have more access to information, more access to film, and you have the same access with Zoom and FaceTime, all that good stuff. We've been able to conduct all those same meetings from Central Command. So I think things are changing that way, but it's been a fun process to go through with our coaches and our personnel department together.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach.
You're welcome.
Cam.
Hey, good morning, Coach. Speaking
Morning.
of that home base communication and keeping everybody kind of in-house, if you will, do you feel like you guys get to know each other on a different level? Does that help in that process when you guys have everybody kind of in the same room or in the same building, if you will?
Yeah, really important, Cameron. I think that's a really awesome point that you just made, and it's one that I really believe in. I think it has been an edge for us because from a coaching staff standpoint, that synergy, but then the collaboration and the connection between personnel departments and coaching departments, and then also sports performance as well, from the medical side of things. So being able to team up and have that easy communication, we feel like that's an advantage, especially through this process. And like I said, it's been really good for us to get to know one another, and I think that is an advantage of staying home.
Thank you for that. You mentioned O'Day, Obushi, excuse me. You mentioned him and kind of what you liked about him. Are you looking for him to be one of the starters at the guard position?
We certainly feel like he's a starting caliber player, Cameron, but he's going to have to compete. But we feel like last year he played like a starter, like a winning starter in the NFL, and that's why we signed him. And I feel like he's definitely got the traits that we're looking for in that position. Like I said, I really like his demeanor. He's got an awesome story from New York, went to Virginia, comes from an awesome family. And he's like at that perfect spot in his career, in my opinion, where he's got a lot of confidence at this point. And now, hopefully that expresses itself even better with us.
I like the point that you make that the NFL is a development league, and then you catch them in that right development pattern, regardless of the age. I like that. That's a good point. Speaking of development, your tight end position. What does an ideal tight end look like to you?
Yeah, Cameron. There's different sizes now, and I think that's kind of like in that process, you have to sort of space that group into on the line Y tight ends or F tight ends that are more move guys off the line, guys that can play detached from the formation. There's so many. That's a position that is truly become a hybrid position of sorts, but it's an advantage if you have a really good room. So I think you kind of categorize the tight ends that are kind of Y only, and you have guys that are F only, and then you got guys that you feel like you can do either, that can be Y and F. So that's kind of how we would classify that position. But I think what you're starting for at tight end, Cameron, is their ability to add value in the pass game. I think that's where it starts with a tight end, is their value in the passing game. What type of receiver is he? Is he a vertical threat? Is he a level 1, level 2 threat? Is he a separator? How does he catch the ball in traffic? Can he split out from the formation? How does he play as a wide out? A lot of those things go into the evaluation. Then at the point of attack, how is he at the line of scrimmage? How is he off the line of scrimmage? How does his balance and body control, working across the formation or in combination with people, as a blocker. And then, from there, you talk about his pass protection ability, that's kind of a final part of the evaluation. But it's a position that if you have a deep room and a versatile room, it creates a big advantage for you schematically.
So are you looking for multiple people to play those positions? You described a hell of a player right there.
Yeah, I think what most guys don't just fit. It's very rare nowadays for you to find that complete player. That just, man, he's got it all. I mean, he has it all. And the way the game's trending, a lot of these guys are playing detached from the formation and being more like receivers. And so from a blocking standpoint, what's being asked of these guys is different than it was 10, 15 years ago at the point of attack. So, and with the advent of RPOs, those guys aren't asked to do as much, and you can kind of mitigate some of the risk with a player like that. But I think, you're certainly looking for guys that can add value in the passing game. And then in the run game, can they give you an advantage at the point of attack, whether it's on the line or off the ball, moving across the formation.
Lastly, for me, Coach, in regards to your edge position players that you're looking to fill, have you had any conversations with some of the free agents that's available, or are you looking to fill that spot in the draft?
It's
fill
just
those spots in the draft. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Cameron. It's ongoing. I think that we sort of had a specific plan for that initial part of a free agency, but it's always ongoing. I think that we're certainly going to try and make it through the draft, and then see what happens from there. But looking forward to coaching the group that we have, and then I think Kyler was a good addition in the first part of free agency, and then now we'll look. Certainly the draft is the next thing, and then we'll see what happens between now and training camp.
Thank you, Coach.
You're welcome.
Fernando.
Hi, Brandon. When you see somebody like Jerry Tillery, who last year Gus Bradley tried to experiment with him at edge or defensive tackle, where do you kind of see him fitting in your system, and how can you help him go up to that first round? He was drafted in the first round, but hasn't really lived up to the expectations. How do you feel like your system will help him develop?
I'm a really big fan of Jerry Tillery's game. I think this guy's a versatile inside player. I think he's an inside player. I mean, this guy's got real, size, speed. This guy's production last year jumped off the page for me. And I know that people want to magnify some of the sack production, but I think the tape, what the film said, told me a different story. I think this guy's a matchup guy inside. He's got real quickness. He's got real pass rush ability. And then, Fernando, like you said, he does have the ability to play on the edge. I don't think that is where, I think he was moonlighting on the edge. But, he can give you a physical body presence if you're playing a big, heavy run team that, hey, you want to put a physical presence out there. Yeah, he has that versatility to do it. But we certainly view him as an inside player, and certainly where he's going to give us the biggest advantage is in interior pass rush. But we feel like this guy's got a chance to be a complete player. This guy's a lot more tough, physical, and rugged in the run game than I was expecting. And, I know that when I watched him, I was really excited to work with him because he does have the versatility and traits that we really value inside.
And you guys re-signed Michael Davis. Why was that important for you? You could have gone out and gotten somebody that you were familiar with from the Rams or somewhere else. Why did you feel like it was necessary for you guys to re-sign Michael Davis? And how do you feel like he'll fit your system?
Yeah, I think number one, it's an awesome story. This guy's got a great story and a great nickname, this Vato thing. Like I'm like loving that. I can't wait to sort of call him that all the time. But just an amazing story. It was great when he got signed, just the emotion and just kind of having the background on why all the emotion. It was pretty amazing. But this guy's got real DB stuff out there, size, length, real deep speed. I mean, this guy's a 4.3, comfortable 4.3, running with any of these cheetah cats out wide. I mean, like all these guys that you know about, that you write about, he can run with them. And we feel like he's at the beginning of his development. And so, and the fact that he's a homegrown player, we want to take care of as many guys as we can. We know it's not possible all the time, but just felt like the value was really good for where he's at in his career and where he's capable of going. And we feel like I said, he's at the beginning, but he's got real DB stuff out there to be a starting corner in this league, and hopefully we can continue with his development.
What do you feel like? What do you think the biggest difference has been from going from being a defensive coordinator and now being a head coach? You're the man in charge. Has there been anything that's kind of overwhelmed you in the first 2-3 months of being in this position?
Maybe LA traffic on my way back north on the weekends. That may have overwhelmed me a little bit because it's picked back up. That 405, 101 thing has been sort of a minefield to navigate at times where it was pretty calm there for a while. But Fernando, I think, certainly just, having a schedule that allows you to compete, where you need to. within the day, whether it's with your defensive staff, your offensive staff in the kicking game, personnel department, making sure with your sports performance team that you're aligned with what's going to be happening here in phase 1, phase 2 moving forward. I think just probably having that organizational approach streamlined where you can be where you need to be in order to be the best version of yourself, and then also really trusting the people that you hired to do a really good job and giving them the autonomy to make sure that they're doing the job exactly like you would. And so I feel like that's what I'm fortunate. We hired an amazing staff here, and I think that's expressed itself more than anything, and why it's made my job, you could say busier, but definitely more fun as well. So I've really enjoyed it, and I won't feel like a real coach though until the players show up. So everything has been been great so far, but really looking forward to finally coaching the guys.
Appreciate it, Brandon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gilbert.
Hey, Brandon, so you're all moved into Orange County now, left Ventura County?
We still got to move left, Gilberto. We still got to move, but it's happening. We've got a date now, so that's good.
Good to know. Brandon, I guess I'll be the one to ask about the left tackle position. Is there an opening in that position right now? Is there a vacancy? Do you feel like there's a starter there? How do you kind of view that position overall?
Yeah, there's certainly a hole there right now. We feel like we have some tackle prospects on the roster that could certainly play there, but it's going to be certainly a position that we need to address before July. And as there's a lot of different ways to address it within the draft, free agency, trade. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. So definitely that's going to be a piece that we need to fill before July, and we're excited to do it. But we really like the way we've started in free agency with the interior of our line.
And Brandon, you mentioned the interior. You brought in some good veterans, but do you feel like you guys need to get younger at the position, maybe develop some guys, especially at tackle or even overall in the unit? Do you feel like you want to have that for the future? Yeah, definitely, Gilberto. Great points. Depth is so big, especially up front. You want to have guys that have some versatility, but guys that you're grooming, guys that you've drafted that have come up under your program, and I'm excited to go through that process. And it really is, with that position, guys, it's such a developmental position. And luckily we have Frank Smith, Sean Surrett, who are fantastic coaches that I'm so excited for our linemen to partner up with. But sometimes going into the draft process, sometimes what you got to do is close your eyes and say, okay, what's he going to be like in the spring of 2022, not August of 2021? And sometimes with O-linemen, particularly, I think that's what you have to do. And certainly going into this evaluation process, we're going to try and crush it that way. And we've been asking about younger players, Brandon. How do you feel Trey Pipkins has done in the last couple of years, and you think there's a future for him to potentially be a starter? Yeah, I think he's flashed, Gilberto. I think the good thing is you've been able to evaluate him out there in the fire, so there's real life action. You're not just watching practice film or preseason. So I think we've been able to address, okay, this is where this guy's game is. This is where he excels. This is where right now he needs to improve. And all right, here's the vision moving forward. I know he's played on the right side mainly here, but feel like guys, when you're a tackle, we need you to really be able to go both places, right? So we're going to try and figure out where he fits best. But he's a developing player with a lot of good traits for the position, and now he's got to get with our coaches and be able to mold his game between now and July. And Brandon, one more. When it comes to scouting these linemen, sometimes it could be a knock that you're not set at one position. Say you're looking for a left tackle, and the guys play right tackle or even inside. Do you view that as kind of as a knock, or do you prefer guys to be versatile and play inside and outside? Yeah, I think you always value versatility if it's real versatility, if it can truly help you. And I think it's one thing to be versatile, like having the skill set to do it, but also, do you have the mind to be versatile? Because you could have a versatile skill set, but maybe your mind won't allow you to play all over the formation, whether it's a lineman or DB, whatever, receiver. So, excuse me, guys. I think
at tackle, there's certain characteristics of that position that are important, and we all know who's playing on the edge on the other side of the ball. And for us, you got to be able to pass protect, and that position, you have to play in more space. You're in more space, and these guys are long, they're athletic, and so where that tackle position starts for us is being able to pass protect.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
Joe.
Brandon, in a normal NFL offseason, which seems like 200 years ago from the past 2 years, you would have started offseason workouts this week as a new head coach. Has there been any guidance from the league what you can start? Can you do virtual, or has there been any word?
It's kind of ongoing, Joe. It's kind of an ongoing communication process with the NFL, and I think they've sort of targeted, the 18th of April, Monday, is maybe when phase one can start. I know it's going to start virtual from a meeting standpoint. And then from an in-person workout standpoint, I think, there's going to be some ability to work with our sports performance team. But how exactly phase two and phase three expresses itself, whether we can work in person, and then get on the field eventually in phase three to practice, finishing with a mini camp. I think that's to be decided. And I think we're just kind of staying patient and waiting for direction from the league. But we've kind of have contingencies planned either way, Joe. We're just excited to hopefully to get out and join up with these guys on the field.
I would guess, Brandon, how important would phase one be for you, even if you could do the virtual meetings so the assistants can start getting in, the nomenclature and everything and start talking strategy that way?
Yeah, Joe, I think just the ability to have the virtual meetings is going to be awesome. I think what we all learned last year with no physical off season is that, hey, this can be done. And so I think hopefully, and I just talked to a leadership group on our team, in 1 year's time, how much better can we get at it, so that we can have, let's just say it's that way again. How can you have, an even better virtual off season if that's the way it's got to be. So I think that the fact that we get in front of our guys, I think that's the most important thing. And then from the physical standpoint, hopefully we'll be able to work out there on the field at some point, and then hopefully get to practice a little bit. But either way, the fact that we get to know our players, to me, is the most important thing. And they can know us, we can know them, know one another, and then really see the vision for how we want to play, and then the specifics of how we play, and be able to detail that up as the spring goes. That's what we're all looking forward to.
In terms of, training camp and everything, and only the 3 preseason games, have you started to talk to Tom about maybe having workouts with other teams or multiple teams during camp, just how you want to structure things?
Yeah, Joe, I think we're at the beginning of that. I think people are starting to kind of transition to that, sort of thought process. And it's going to be interesting, certainly with the addition of the 17th game, and then, subtracting one for the preseason, sort of how you allocate your time. But we'll figure that out. I think we're at the beginning of it, and it's going to be, I'm excited to be able to compete. Certainly, I think that last year showed that you can get it done without preseason games, and I know that's the way it happened in college, guys. Believe it or not, they don't have preseason games there, and they're able to play. So whatever that amount of games is, I think we'll be able to plan accordingly, Joe. I think, like, to your point, is just planning your preseason from a sort of a load management standpoint, from an analytics standpoint. Hey, what's that going to look like as opposed to when it was 4? I think everyone's used to 4. All right, how are you going to transition that to 3, and then knowing that you got a game on the back end? But it's still 20, right? It's still 20 games, and as we know in the preseason, a lot of these guys haven't been playing for several years. So we're at the beginning of that, but looking forward to going through that process.
Just going to quarterback for a minute, the guys behind Justin, you signed Chase Daniel, you've got Easton Stick coming back. Maybe it's possible you bring in a 4th camp arm just because you need the extra arm for camp. Just how do you evaluate maybe Chase and Easton for that number 2 spot? Yeah,
we're really excited about Easton Stick. Gotten to know this guy. I'm a big fan of this guy. I actually got wind of this guy when I went to the Rams. These guys scrimmaged against one another and played against each other. So was able to, kind of get some feedback from those guys. I remember back then, sort of hearing about him and knowing what a winner he is, and we really like this guy. And so, we feel like it's going to be a good competition between those two. Know what Chase brings to the table. I was with Chase in 2018. His relationship with Joe in New Orleans. Chase has been doing this for a long time, and there's a reason for it. But we certainly see those two competing for the number 2 spot behind Justin, and I'm excited about that because I think it's going to make our team better. I think that's important for competition at every position, but certainly, when you have 2 guys like that I think can push each other, push Justin, push our team, I think it's going to be really good for the Chargers.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Omar.
Hey, Brandon. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you, Omar.
Hey, I'm just curious. I remember last year around this time, or early in your tenure, you spent a lot of time building relationships and getting to know the guys as people. Before you guys really dived into the football stuff. I'm just wondering, in that fact gathering, getting to know personalities, anything like that, anything you learned that helped you strategically later when you actually designed the defense? Who's an aggressive personality, who maybe takes risk, anything like that, in getting to know the guys as people that helped you coordinate the defense?
Last year with the Rams?
Yeah, and then,
Yeah.
what lessons you might learn from that you can help apply this year.
Yeah, well, I just use Jalen as an example, and I made like a 90-play cut-up for this guy. This was like the beginning of the Zoom world, 90-play cut-up, going all the way back to Florida State, to his game. What I really liked, what I felt like he could improve, and then the role for us with, the Rams at that time. And I wanted to do that with a guy like that because I wanted him to see that we were working, that we were really, studying his game and really had a plan for him. And I think in that process, I think when you invest in people, you're going to get a lot in return. And that's certainly what happened because I learned a lot about Jalen in that process. Like going through that 90-play movie, I learned a lot about him. And I think he learned a lot about me. And then where we were able to leave that meeting, sort of led to all the stuff that you guys saw, last year. And if that had never taken place, then who knows, how it would have gone. But, I think that's incumbent upon all of us coaches is to do things like that. And that's what I've talked to our coaching staff about. And that's what we're doing right now with our players on an individual basis is creating those relationships where we can learn where they've been and where they're trying to go. And then, them get to learn us so they can kind of get to know how we do things and then partner up that we can hit the ground running full speed and really get somewhere quickly. So I think that what I learned from last year having to do it virtual is that it requires a lot of investment. When you Zoom and when you FaceTime, it requires a lot more of you than if you could just be in person all the time. And so you have to be a lot more intentional about it. But I think that that's a good thing. I think that was my big takeaway from last year is I was exhausted at the end of the spring, but I knew that I gave it everything that I had, and and I think that that's all you can ask for, and I think that if that's the way it is this offseason, then I plan on being exhausted at the end of it again.
And would you replicate that sort of thing with Justin, even though he's on the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, now I get the chance to sort of. As a defensive coach, you're staying in your lane as a coordinator. But now what's awesome is you get to, really partner up with guys like Corey Linsley and Brian Balaga. And we can go back and trade some of our, maybe they can declassify some information for me. We've kind of talked about that. And then you can talk to Justin Herbert, Easton Stick, Chase Daniel. You can go over, a lot more than, just talking about where our favorite restaurant is. We can get into the ball and really, help their game out, help them improve and give them something that's really going to make their game better. So certainly, Omar, I'm looking to multiply those meetings and hopefully there will be enough time in the day.
Cool. Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.
Jeff.
Hey, Brandon.
How we doing, Jeff?
You mentioned, I think you said, when you were talking about Tillery, you said he's a matchup guy. What do you mean by that?
Just that he can move within anywhere in the front. And so, we feel like whether you're isolating him on the interior on a guard or moving him outside on a tackle, he's got flexibility to be a problem at both places. For instance, I think that he's got real quickness and length that bother guards. Guards typically aren't as long of players as a tackle is. So he's got initial quickness and he's got really long arms. So he can win that race to tag, right? You know, we kind of talk about tag. Can you win that race? I think he's got that. Then on the edge, what he has, if the tackle's lighter, okay, he's got real physicality to run over you and really be a physical presence on the edge or wider within the front. So we feel like he's scheme versatile that way, and it's something that we really value as a matchup guy.
Okay. And then with Adderley, I think you use the term star money. Did I hear you?
Star,
right?
like star is our nickel term, and then money is our dime term. We give them different like terms because it's in a subcategory. So you hear like us say star or money. Those are, you know, like we kind of change the terms because of the world that they're living in. It's a different world than the base world. So
Okay. You can get used to me asking a lot of these types of questions.
no, I can't get enough of them. I can't get enough of them. But like we're gonna get so far ahead now because star, money, edge, like we're moving fast.
We're getting down. Good.
Communication.
With Brian Bulaga, do you guys just sort of just attribute last year just an unlucky season for him? He didn't get a chance to play a whole lot, had a lot of injuries. Is that something that you can just kind of write off as it was just a rough year for him?
I think it was a different year for everybody. I think that from a training standpoint, from a preseason, standpoint, it's just very unique, I think, for all of us, right? I mean, just for all of us. So I think that with Brian, where he's at in his career, like I talked to you guys about, analytics and load and things like that, where he's at. I was just with a guy, Andrew Whitworth, who you guys all know. He's at a different spaces in his career than a 22 or 23-year-old young whippersnapper. They played a lot more ball. So I just think that we have to have a specific plan for him that gives him the best chance to be successful and really individualize our practice, our training plans for him, because we know that when he's out there, he's a productive player, and he gives us the best chance to win. So, I've got so much respect for Brian. I'm excited to partner up with him because I had to go against him. Him and Linsley got really good records against me and against us. And so we're hoping to partner up and sort of flip that script a little bit. But, I think for him, we're a lot better team when he's out there. And I know that in talking with him, I've learned a lot about him and, just really excited to get him back out on the field for us.
You guys could end up with a rookie left tackle. Logically, common sense would tell you that would be the hardest place for a rookie to play on the offensive line. Is that true, or how do you try to, when you're developing a left tackle that young, if he is a starter, how do you try to? Is there a way to kind of ease that transition? And I don't know how you do it at that position. It's just so important.
I think it's interesting, guys. I think being a rookie in the NFL, regardless of the position, is really, really hard. I think that Kenneth Murray would tell you linebacker is a hard position to play. But I think, Jeff, you certainly bring up an awesome point. The one thing I would say about tackle guys is that, like Khalil Mack, Von Miller, TJ Watt, they line up on the left side. So, like, your tackles, you got to have tackles. Left and right, that doesn't exist anymore because these guys move around. These defensive players move around. You have to have tackles, and they have to be mirrored players, okay? Seriously, like you have to have tackles, just like corners. You have to have corners. It used to be like, well, you put your left corner over here because most teams are right-handed. Well, that doesn't exist anymore. You need to have corners, and I think for us, Jeff, like you said, it's a tough position. Like I told you, being O-line, being developmental, it's a challenging position to play because of who you're having to block from an individual standpoint. To your point of why it's so challenging and why like tackle and corner are so challenging is because those are more mano-a-mano type roles, right? It's not like, now you can help them, nudge them, you get, a protection plan and stuff like that. But from a mano-a-mano standpoint, it's a tough deal. So I think that in studying tackles and the history of the game, sometimes it takes them some time, to truly ascend to where they can go. And I think that that's why, no matter where they're drafted, and if they have to start as rookies, you really have to project and really know that this player is going to get a lot better. How they start is not how they're going to finish. And it's, really incumbent upon us to coach them really well and really have a good plan to help them be as good as they can be.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Gonna go to the phone line. Matt Money Smith.
Right on. My apologies for not having video going. I'm just commuting, Coach. But thanks for doing this. This is awesome. Great insight in the offseason. I'd love to ask, in working at NFL Network, he was the first one I heard say it. I don't know if he came up with it, but Brian Billick used to describe a wide receiver room as a basketball team that he wanted to build. Get your post-up players, your big guys that can rebound, your point guards. How do you look at the wide receiver room, and do you feel like you have kind of that complete, if I can use it, that basketball team that he would talk about?
Yeah, you certainly want to have a diverse group, and I think that, what I think he means by that is just having a lot of different flavors of receivers. What you want in a receiver group is you want to have guys that can affect you in all three levels of the defense. Can they threaten you in level one, outside and inside? Can they affect you level two, more in the intermediate area of the field? And then, who can get deep, in level three? And I think that, the offensive coaches in the league and a defensive coach would tell you that the hardest teams to defend are teams that have a complete receiver group. And I think certainly coming into this opportunity, I would certainly look at our receiver room that way, because you have Keenan that can play outside and in the slot, who's one of the premier wideouts in the game. You have Mike Williams, who is a tremendous level 3 player outside, but I think that inside this guy can play even better. A guy that, is such a tough cover from a matchup standpoint because of his size. And then, his speed, his body control. And then, we've got these, two young guys, T. Billy and Jalen Guyton, who can roll. They're legit 4-3 guys. And when you have guys that are legit 4-3, get deep on you, take the top off the coverage, it just opens up a lot more in the passing game. And especially when you have a diverse tight end and running back room, well, now you got all sorts of weapons out of those 5 eligibles that people really have to defend. If you don't have to worry about defending the top shelf of the coverage, and you can just sit in level 2 waiting for stuff, well, it's going to be hard for you to throw the football at a high level. The teams that throw the football at a high level are the people that can access all those parts of the field. So I think what Brian, when he talked about a basketball team, there's a lot of different types of basketball teams now too. The Warriors are a lot different group than the Chicago Bulls were in the 90s, right, that I fell in love with, Steve. You remember, Ron Harper, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, like 3 7-footers. That was a big team. Well, the Warriors, they don't play like that. They're smaller, right? Like they're playing small ball. So, what I think is you got to have a diverse basketball team. You got to have guys that are big. You got to have guys in the middle, and then you got to have guys, that are, have got that quickness, that short area stuff, that in level 1 that matters too. So I feel like we're off to we're very fortunate here, but that's always ongoing to improve it as best we can.
Now I got to figure out which wide receiver is the Judd Bushler and which is the Clef Livingston, so we can try to get this thing sorted.
You'll offend some people if you go there now.
Oh yeah, I'll be. Although I don't know if they would know who they were.
Because like the basketball thing, like if you're a basketball junkie, like the games, like just like the games changed in basketball, like the games changed in football, right? Like
right.
It's talking about eras and all this and that. That's why I'm like so interested with guys that like Steve Kerr and Doc, who have like played in that space and now they're coaching like in a different game, like they're in a totally different world. I think it's so interesting that way.
And you know what? I'm going to try to put on my radio hat here and use that as a perfect opportunity to transition, because football, a lot of people will say, is a different game. When you would build an offense around a rush attack and play off of that, now we know, how productive the passing game is and whether the run game is a product of the success there. But one thing that's happened each of the last 3 years is a running back from the practice squad or one that has been signed after the season has started has gotten pretty significant carries because of injuries. Where are you at with the running back room? Was there any discussions about that position in free agency, and kind of just specifically with sort of the attrition that goes along with that position?
Yeah, well, like first, the other thing about basketball too is like we know that like shooting threes and shooting layups or dunks is kind of where the game's gone to. So that's where the game has completely changed. You know, just shooting it. Like you mentioned, like the transition to the throw game in football, or where basketball has changed is like the 3-point shot, right? I mean, that's
right.
And that's why the teams are being constructed differently that way. But it's still a big man's game, guys. Just so you know, it's still a big man's game at the end of the day. So, I think that, what you talked about, with the running back room is I really like our group. I think we got a young group. I think that, you start out with Austin, the production that he's been able to have in the NFL so far, a true dual threat, running the ball, catching it. And then Justin Jackson, Josh Kelly, we like those guys as prospects. We feel like those guys can do all the jobs that feature or that are featured in our offense. And we feel like their best football is ahead of them. And I did some work, last year evaluating Josh Kelly, just studying a lot of the defensive players in the draft. And I've really enjoyed getting to know Justin Jackson. So we feel like we got a healthy running back room, and knowing that you need a really balanced and deep group to be good for an entire NFL season.
And then last thing, Coach, and again, thanks for doing this. Just kind of wondering, I heard Daniel say it on the Zach Wilson pro day, and it was kind of like it was almost a dichotomy of a pro day. He said, one, for people that are poo-pooing this and saying, why are you freaking out at all this guy's throws? He said, just sit back and enjoy it. This is a lot of fun. And then he said, two, if they didn't mean anything, no one would be here. So kind of without the combine and sort of the way things have changed in the offseason and the draft and the evaluation process, where are you with pro days? Like how do those fit into your evaluation process?
I think it's an excellent question. I think it's a part of the evaluation process. I think the big part of drafting players is you're just trying to get all the information that you can acquire. And so the more information that you can acquire, you feel like that can help you make a better decision. And so, you're always going to trust what you see on the film. But the film can lie to you. Okay, the film can deceive you. There's a lot of variables to people's success or their lack of. There's a lot of variables in the college film process that can be deceiving. You're not comparing apples to apples, like you are in the NFL. So you got to take in all that information, whether it's a pro day, whether it's all the game film. You have to take all of it in the Senior Bowl, their All-Star game stuff. You take it all into consideration, and then you paint a picture on a player. And I think that what you learn about pro days is you don't overvalue or undervalue. You just value them, and it's just a part of the process. And I think that each case is specific, and we certainly pay close attention to it.
All right, thank you, Coach.
You're welcome.
All right, a couple more, Coach. Steve Weish.
Brandon, you forgot the late Bison Dele part of the mix right there. And also, as I'm going to keep into the genre, what was the over-under on the word edge coming into this call?
The over-under. I don't know, but it's an easier way of looking at it, guys. We're transforming that. It's going to help these guys get paid more, franchise tag, right? So I'm hoping to help players out there. Edge, it makes it easier, right? Now all these outside linebackers wouldn't be so mad, when they're getting tagged. So just edge, that'll just make it so much easier.
So along that genre, because that was your specialty, and you've had so much production from players you've coached on the edge. How does that help you evaluate offensive tackles?
Yeah, I think that you get a really strong sense on the other side, Steve, of who athletically can do the job, who you feel like has the range to get back there and kick to these rushers. I think having coached a Von Miller, a Khalil Mack, a Bradley Chubb, a Leonard Floyd, some of who are the top players at their position. Now I'm getting to work with Joey Bosa. You just know who they have to block. So I think that when you go into the evaluation process, it gives you a very clear picture of what type of person is going to, be required in order to do that. And so, and then also knowing, Steve, that you have to be able to project I think that, there'll be some guys that maybe they can't block those players in year one, but year 2 or 3, they can, because they get, whatever, bigger, stronger, faster, more knowledge of the game, whatever the case may be. And I think that, where it really starts though, Steve, is you got to understand the job description of a tackle. For me, I talked about critical factors at corner, like what are the critical factors for an O lineman? And, one of the critical factors is one-on-one pass protection, and I think that, we certainly, that's where the evaluation process starts for us.
And also, in regards to Justin Herbert, I mean, last year, yes, he had about a month of on-field training camp work getting in the Chargers offense. But from there, he was going week-to-week game plan, right? He really didn't get that deep dive. How do you think, if you are able to get some on-field work throughout most of the spring and summer, that is going to really help him get into what Joe likes to do? Because we know Joe's done some really great stuff in terms of just developing pocket presence and things like that with his quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think where it really helps, Steve, it's, from a physical standpoint, just fundamentally, you really grow as a player when you get an off season, when you can really work full speed in the rhythm and timing of a play. And so, developing that muscle memory, developing those fundamentals that are so important to your success, I think that's, an awesome place to start before you even take the scheme out of it, just from a fundamental standpoint, getting that confidence in your game, and working with receivers that are your receivers, that you are going to be throwing to. It's one thing to have workouts, with a bunch of guys, but hey, is it with your wideouts being able to run your offense and developing that special stuff? That's what makes the game special, is those relationships and knowing that we're teaming up to do something. And I think that's where an offseason would benefit any quarterback, but certainly Justin. And then from a new offensive standpoint, Steve, just, getting into that comfort zone of our language, right? And like we talked about, translating a lot of what Justin knows to our language, and him, getting that comfort zone of, how we call formations, protections, run game, pass game, alerts, kills, different tempos, different cadences. A lot goes into playing offensive football, and he's certainly, a guy that you can put a lot on. But I think what he proved more than anything is that he's just a really natural football player. And what we're hoping to do is get him into that rhythm and comfort zone so all those natural skills can come to life.
And last question, what Joe is, what he's done in New Orleans, what he did in Detroit, a lot of personnel package flow. I mean, play-to-play personnel package flow. Is that something that you think you can incorporate with Justin's skill set?
Yeah, I mean, you want to be able to put a lot of pressure on the defense. I think from for what I think is paramount on both sides of the ball and in the kicking game is that you use personnel groupings as a weapon, because you want to put people in conflict every single snap. And part of the way you do that is with a variety of groupings that they have to prepare for, where they can't just say, man, hey, this is all 11. I've got a lot of defenses to defend 11 personnel guys. It's a lengthy call sheet. But when you have to defend 11, 12, 21, 22, 10, hey, now there's 2 tailbacks in the game. Now there's 3 tight ends in the game. Okay, what receivers in the game? It puts a lot of pressure on you defensively. And so we certainly want to be a matchup-driven team, because week to week, right, that opponent that you're playing is going to be really different. So we want to be really specific and use our matchups each week to our advantage. And the only way you can do that is if you can play a lot of different groupings. That's certainly why we do it the way we do it on defense. As you guys all know, kind of where I came from, how we do it there. I wanted to have an offensive philosophy that mirrored it.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Steve.
Dennis.
Good afternoon, Coach Staley. How are you?
Hi, Dennis.
What do you like about Ryan Smith, and are you happy with the makeup of your secondary?
Yeah, Ryan Smith is a guy we studied. Our Hill DA, Tommy Donatello, did a great job scouting him with our pro scouting department. Just felt like This guy's been a starter in the NFL at corner, has some safety flex, and is an outstanding special teams player. One of the better special teams players out there. Darius Swinton, Mayor Chidari, those guys really had some feeling for this guy. And it's funny, I actually coached one of Ryan's high school teammates at James Madison, so the relationships come full circle. But just we feel like this guy's got movement. To have some DB versatility, and then add a lot of value in the kicking game, and certainly coming from a place that just won a championship, certainly has that pedigree, and so we're looking forward to working with him, and hopefully he can come in here and compete.
When you look over this last question for me, when you look over what you've been able to do during free agency, are you satisfied as far as addressing the needs of the roster?
Yes, Dennis. I think we executed our plan. I felt like at a high level. I feel like we went into it with a clear vision. Because to me, and I know that Tom's talked to you guys. Free agency is about value more than anything. Because what happens in free agency, you may have need, but then if the value exceeds the need, then you need to pump the brakes. So what we felt like was we were able to get the right value, address some of those depth issues, Dennis, like you mentioned, that are real. And then, certainly, sort of springboard ourselves into becoming a balanced team, which is the goal, is can you create the most balanced team going into the season that can stand the test of a full season?
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
All right, and last one, we'll go back to Joe.
Brandon, no name dropping with basketball, those early 90s Cavs teams with Brad Daugherty and Hot Rod Williams.
Yeah, Larry Nance, Craig Elo, Mark Price. I mean, that guy, now Ron Harper. Guys, Michael Jordan, man, what shot, we still haven't recovered from that necessarily. Some of us Clevelanders, that was the beginning of something, but that was a deep team. Lenny Wilkins, one of the all-time great coaches, right? That was a balanced team. It was a big team. It was a team that could shoot it. And those were really good teams. The Eastern Conference was loaded, though. I mean, Celtics, Pistons, and up-and-coming Bulls. I mean, those were the glory days, guys. I mean, the scoring was a lot lower than it is now, when those guys were really able to be physical. But those Cavs teams were fun to watch.
Oh, yeah. I was at a few games that season, and unfortunately...
Richfield Coliseum.
Yeah. Not a good drive in the winter going up and down that hill, but...
No.
Going back to... I know you were terming star and money in those positions and everything. And you did film study with Jalen at Florida State, and you've got Derwin now. How similar is your star position to what Jalen and Derwin did at Florida State?
Yeah, it's a similar concept. Those guys that they joined up with Jeremy Pruitt, who comes from sort of that Nick Saban family, but the Belichick kind of Saban, that sort of way. Kirby Smart, Muschamp, those guys that coach sort of that similar system. Those are terms that really apply to sub defense, to like a sub role. And so DJ, certainly it's a different context because Jalen's a corner. And DJ's a safety, but it's that same thought process is that, like you guys saw last year with JJ with the Rams, is that, whether you're safety, star, money, Derwin James, bottom line is he's a DB, and that's what we want. We want as many DBs on our team as possible. They can do a lot of different jobs, and so Derwin James is kind of a premium, example of that versatility. And we're certainly hoping to take advantage of it.
Because I know Jeremy, during his 2-3 seasons at Florida State, would, have him drop in at linebacker certain times, edge rushers, others. Do you see the same versatility with him in your defense, or are you just mainly DB right now?
Yeah, you want to just get him where the action is, right? So, like, Derwin James has got a lot of gifts closer to the ball that a lot of DBs don't have. For instance, that they just may be deep part of the field players. He's got a lot of gifts closer to the line of scrimmage, but the thing that's unique about Derwin is in the deep part of the field, he is equally as gifted. Okay, Jalen Ramsey is really good outside. He is equally as gifted inside. And so that's a rare combination. And so we feel like Derwin's certainly a rare combination. He's got rare makeup too, which we're looking forward to working with because he's just got just an unbelievable vibrance to this guy, leadership qualities, and I can't wait to get in the meeting room with him.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.